When you're out there in the Mojave Desert, attending to your courier duties, one of the thoughts that'll eventually pop into your mind while sightseeing is, I wonder what the backstory of this place is. But it's usually nothing more than a little lighthearted joke. The last thing that should pop into your mind is that this place was used by some sort of hideout by a schizophrenic conspiracy theorist that endangered children. Well, what if I told you such a place actually existed? And it just so happens to be right here in this very desert. The Lone Wolf Radio is a location in Fallout, New Vegas, plagued by mystery. If you wandered around the Mojave long enough, you may have found yourself at this place before. Just south of Good Springs and southwest of Good Springs water source, there lies an old abandoned camper on the top of a hill overlooking the waste towards Primm. Upon arrival, it is easy to conclude that this camper was once used as some sort of broadcasting station, similar to the other broadcasting stations we can tune into while journeying throughout the Mojave. Not to mention the keep out warning painted on the side of the camper, warding off any passerbys that may be curious as to the contents inside. There are old ham radios set up at the front of the camper, some of which surprisingly still work, not to mention the radio playing tunes on the stacked metal boxes behind you, as well as the old broadcasting setup directly across it. The camper itself doesn't have many items of relevancy worth picking up, other than the Wasteland Survival Guide, and a Sunset Sarsaparilla Star bottle cap that are both located next to the mattress on the floor. There are also 2 pieces of scrap electronics and 2 sensor modules that can be used to fix EDE iBot in the side quest EDE My Love. If you couldn't tell, this entire camper is in utter disarray, and whoever had inhabited this camper previously had been on their last mental straw because they had left behind manic writing on one of the walls stating, "Everyone is gone. I am all alone. Let it all end." Just who could have this camper belong to, and what events conspired here that could explain the state that we find the camper in? Well, according to the myths, one of 2 things could have gone down at this place, and none of which were quite peachy. According to creepypasta legend, Lone Wolf Radio is a location in game that was supposed to be used in a small quest line that would be started when the courier tuned into the Lone Wolf Radio broadcast at 2 a.m. But due to the graphical content and time restraints, the quest had to be cut out from the final product. The original poster of the story claims that they managed to get in contact with an employee at Obsidian, the studio that developed Fallout New Vegas, and from there they were able to get their hands on the original game files that still had the quest line intact, or what was left of it before it was trashed. At 2 a.m., the OP tunes into the Lone Wolf Radio broadcast, where he describes to hear the live torture and killing of an unnamed man broadcasted over the station. The OP then fast travels to the Lone Wolf Radio camper, where he is greeted by a man that gives him the option to then offer a sacrifice to the mother by executing a child. Upon the execution, the courier is then rewarded a perk that allows you to kill the in-game children, similar to Fallout 2's Child Killer perk. Now, whether or not the story is entirely true is up for debate, but there is another explanation that has a little bit more credibility to it. According to the lore of the Wasteland, the Lone Wolf Radio is actually an old pirate broadcasting station that happened to exist prior to the Great War that conspired and plunged the world into nuclear fallout. This very trailer was used by a crazed conspiracy theorist in his campaign against the hidden evils of the government, allegedly waking up the population and fighting the good fight by raising his voice. The nuclear detonations ultimately broke the makeshift broadcasting station, and leaving behind all that is left of what once belonged to this crazed freedom fighter. While it may seem logical as compared to the previous explanation, it is however lacking a proper explanation for the writing on the walls. As one would believe a crazed man would etch these sayings on the wall, it doesn't quite line up with what was going on at the time. As we know, one of the nuclear bombs that made impact with the United States happened to land here in New Vegas, as we would find out from Mr. House and how he used the force field to protect his gambling strip.
Save Vegas, and in the process, perhaps save mankind.
However, everything outside of the strip was left to be decimated by the force of the atom. For the conspiracy theorist to be able to write these sayings of being all alone, he would have had to survive the detonations in order for these sayings to make sense with what he was struggling with, which is a pretty big hypothetical. Although there is a rumor around stating that Three Dog himself, the host of Galaxy News Radio, decided to flee from his protection provided by the Brotherhood of Steel and set out to the Mojave shortly after the events of Broken Steel, had made camp out where the Lone Wolf radio was found, hence the name being Lone Wolf. And it wasn't long after he set up camp that he went deranged and believed that everyone in the area that could be out there was already long gone, and that there was no one out there to hear his messages being broadcasted, causing him to go insane and run off into the Mojave searching for life other than himself. Whether or not these things have happened is up for you to decide. Which do you believe it is? Let me know in the comment section down below. My name is Lost Disciple, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.